My name is Chak, so I'm running this module called Developing Immersive Applications. Actually, this round is called Introduction to VR, but eventually it will be that, since we know how we are moving from VR, to other forms of R, and now most commonly called XR, right?
Yeah.
The blanket term. So just explaining that, this video, although primarily it's meant for the students taking this module at SIT. So by the way, yes, if you're watching this as a non-SIT student, I am a faculty at SIT. Yeah, so we are releasing this just to benefit the broader community. If you find any value out of our conversation here. So delightedly, we also have Mr. Lionel Chok here with us, who now you are with SPH, but you also run a few.
I also do a few things.
Other things.
Yeah.
Okay. And you bring a lot of your experience from media and broadcasting.
I can talk more about that.
This view. Yeah. So I'm not sure whether it's a good way to start by.
It's an introduction by means of introduction.
Understanding like how you got into
Sure.
AR, VR, XR in general.
Sure. Thanks for having me. So my name is Lionel Chok. As you can tell, I'm not a youngish person.
I can tell.
I mean, the long and short of it is I kind of like started in a media journey after I graduated from economics, like undergrad. And basically on one of these gathering with friends, one of them just asked, hey, do you want to try to do something different before you dive into a career of economics? I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah, maybe spend a couple of weeks, try something different, and then we'll come back to. I probably need a time while I'm doing a job search as well, right? So the person said, well, there's an opening at this place called the Substation, and they deal with a lot of arts and all the performance. I'm like, oh, that sounds very different and also quite fun. So I spent like 3 months interning there, and I got exposed to all these different creative processes whereby I was part of like a program intern. So you see people coming together and like, how do we use this space to deliver this like story? And I was kind of like hooked in because all these creative things are so addictive and so fun. And then economics seems like somewhere in the background really.
I see.
And then nearing the end of that 3-month internship, one of them happened to be an actor. And then they said, hey, this TV station that I used to, I'm still like, going there to do casting for roles and shows. They're looking for like a contract person to help with production. I thought, wow, if this is extension of the so-called creative process, maybe I give it a shot. And that give it a shot turned out to be 19 years.
Wow.
So I joined the station, and from then on, I completely moved from economics into like production. Behind the camera, helping the director, planning shots. The whole process, because of the creative nature, is so addictive and fun because it's really about brainstorming like how to put different communication skill sets together. And at the time I was using the form of video audio. So like how do we put like a sequence of images so that people can tell this is a sad moment or happy moment. And then at that point in time, for maybe a delusional part of me is like, wow, if my job is to create kind of a medium that people can laugh with or cry with, then it's probably a very powerful job in the world. And that conviction took me like 19 years through the different stages. So I started 2 years running after the director, serving coffee and tea, and then after stepped up into doing things like budgeting the production. And then 5 years in, people asking, do you want to direct this? And I started writing. So I worked my way up until about 16 years. Then I realized and I knew what the industry is about. And then I was able to move money to produce stuff, taking on the position of executive producer. So my last role in media was to join MediaCorp because they were launching our own version of Netflix, which is at the time called Toggle. Today, people know it as MeWatch. It was a very different moment because when I joined, it's more on no more production per se, but curation of programming and also making sure the engineers know how to broadcast the programs. So I found myself in a very intriguing role. Because of my background in media, I now assist the engineers to create like back end, front end, and those are things that were new to me. So what are they doing, and how do we do this like best fit of user experience or user interfaces to sort of give that whole streaming experience? And I was again hooked towards the tech side of things. Maybe also because like after 19 years, I find that I've kind of like done almost everything I could in the production side. And then this whole tech side was the next hook that got me like wondering, where is this going to take me? So I did a search around, and then realized that unless I really immerse myself into learning, this is not going to be an easy process. And more importantly, nobody's going to take me seriously just because I dabble into a bit of tech. So I decided to just apply to any university with the word creative and technology, combining the two, and see who takes me. And lo and behold, this university in London says, we got a Masters of Science in Creative Technology and we accept you. So I'm like, okay, let's quit and go.
That's cool. Yeah. And so you studied economics. I mean, you trained in that, but you immediately got into something else.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But later I'll share why these things add up. But the main thing was, after I went over, the professors basically looked at my portfolio and then said, you have to do these modules, which is laser cutting, 3D printing. You have to pass them, Arduino. But at the end of 6 months, you can specialize. And we recommend you specialize in media-related technologies.
I see.
Which is augmented and virtual reality. So at the time, I was like, wait a minute, I tried the DK1. I knew what I can do, but I didn't know it was a full-on tech that you can specialize in. So I was quite hooked then, really. And also because I fully understand like things like content within the tech space. So it became one thing that I saw, okay, let's do it. So I finished with like 7 projects in AR, VR, learned to code like C# during that period of time, the hard way, sit down and... but the most important thing is the university themselves at 2014 didn't have anybody even touching VR, even though they have the old VR headsets. So they said, if you actually finish this, you'll be the first student in the postgrad scene to finish a project. And of course, your dissertation in VR. We thought, okay, that's great, let's make waves here. So I did that and then finished, and then did well enough to have this whole project whereby I wanted to immortalize an event in VR, which means if you put on at the time the Google Cardboard, how you can actually transport yourself into this event that already passed. So what I did is I got a 360 camera. I captured like 7 locations of this event. Then I put in interactive within Unity to sort of allow you to gaze and jump back and forth to these 7 places. So that's kind of like the nearest thing to allowing you to relive that physical event that's really ended. And of course they were like, wow, that's a great concept, because now we have this 360 where you can look around the event and feel like you're still there, even the sounds and everything, and the whole autonomy of like choosing where you want to go because of this gaze interaction. So gaze interaction, as some of the students might already come to know, is one of the earliest form of this kind of VR, design or user interface that really was born out of VR. Today it's all about touch. Who has heard of things like gaze interaction? But within Unity,
the students here know, because
exactly. But it came from there. It came from like, if I stare at it for 3 seconds, it'll trigger. But at the time, everybody was like, wow, how to do this? What does it mean? And of course, it was very janky. It's like, how do we know even where to look? Do we make it so obvious that it will destroy the background? Do we make it subtle that you might miss it? So there were all these considerations that nobody sort of had the answer at the time, which is 2014, 2015. But after that, I graduated, came back, and then realized that the whole slate of things have happened. Google launched the Cardboard, then Oculus was acquired, and then suddenly, like, everybody is like, hey, you went over there and did this thing that all these tech companies were pushing ahead in. At the time, I was like, yeah. I pretended to know, like, at the time I knew what I was doing, but actually it all fell into place just because of this emerging tech that happened to coincide with what the tech giants were doing. So I came back, and then I got a lot of client queries, and I thought, okay, let's start this whole idea of serving what they want to do in terms of custom development of software. And that's where Immersively was born. So as much of work experience as I had, this is my very first startup in my mid-40s. I have no idea how to run a company, do HR, how to incorporate. Got to scramble to find friends to like, hey, how to register for Accra Identity and things like that. But the name was something I loved because I brought it over from London, which I went. But one of the things about studying abroad, and even students here, is that there's a big learning about going out of school to attend events. And within London, there's a lot of these like tech events. I made sure that I just went out and attend them. And attending these events, I got a chance to try out like one of the earliest AR headsets. Again, it was very, very clumsy, but you really get to understand like, okay, at that point, what was good, what was no good. There was a lot of community events. There was this thing called the VRLO. So it's like the virtual reality London outfit or outlet or something. But community events just came and they brought their demos and people tested out. And I was talking to a lot of these people. And I think that is something that, on hindsight, look back now, it's just important to complement the education that you receive from a formal place like a school. Then you'll be able to join them together and bring them back to say like, hey, I went to this event, let me share with the students, and vice versa, what you benefit from it. So when I brought this back to the professors at my then university, they made it a mandate that I need to blog it. And then following my term at the university, every subsequent postgrad student need to blog about the events that they attended during their tenure as a student, which is great. That means you have a body of these events which you learn outside of school as well. I think one other thing I also wanted to add is because of my being there and not home, in Singapore, obviously there's a lot of like free time. So I sign up for as much hackathons as I can, and that also constitute another part of the learning. And the best part of it is because I had been so-called told and started the blog. I started to collect photos and write blogs about it. After I came back from Singapore, I put all of them online. I put them on my website, I put them on LinkedIn, and then the queries came as clients and clients requiring or even inquiring about like corporate work. And then that's why Immersively was born, not because I wanted it, but because when I incorporated it, I got 2-3 clients already through the door. They're like, do this for me, let me. So I had to incorporate the company just to serve the clients that had already come in. So that was kind of like, the U-turn of like any startup journey. Usually you create a startup first, then you serve your clients. So at the time, we were very lucky. VR was really hot on the scene. And then you can go to that slide, the first slide, I think. We were actually featured by IMDA. IMDA sort of housed us. They gave us a space, a little bit like this nice room you have. And then we were able to like put our equipment here. And they brought a lot of clients through and we did demos for them. And they kept us, updated with a lot of new things. Hey, this person has got this hardware. You want to try it out? And we made it into the front page of the IMDA site. Interestingly, if you go to IMDA and you type Immersively, we are still there.
I see.
So,
okay, that's cool.
So, despite having been acquired, and we're still there. So maybe it's a nice reminder of,
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to maybe highlight to the students, if you go to the next slide, a lot of these tech lens, this is sort of what we did. We serve clients, and this is a slate of different things that we did. We delivered custom solutions.
Actually, before we move on, I just want to highlight that I think there is already like a learning point from what you have just mentioned in terms of you starting out as not in the
Tech
space at all. I mean, not to mention AR, VR, but not even like computing, software development, engineering, these kind of things. And yet, you were immersing yourself in all aspects of this, including involving in the community. And that's what I also want to convey to the students and perhaps the community at large as well. To be not just be confined within what you
being a student
at that school and try and put yourself out there like what Lionel you have done involved in hackathons. It's definitely an effort and I mean it takes up time and energy beyond what you already have to do in school, but it really exposes yourself to what is out there. And even you talking about writing, blogs, the fact that you're trying to tell others how your perspective of, the space also enables you to try and, learn more about what this is about and sort of form your own concepts about how you should do stuff in this space, which is also what makes you an entrepreneur, right?
The entrepreneur side is a bit of a I attribute it to the economics degree that I got. That gives me a bit of the business sense. So that has come back after 20 plus years to sort of give me a bit of a grounding. And the blog and some of these photos are all online, so they can check it out at lionelchok.com. So I have some tabs there which they can check out, and I've blogged everything there as well. So I think another thing is make sure your works are documented and able to be shown off instead of like hiding them or they don't document them. I think today's climate is that you need a way to make sure that at any point in time somebody asks, you're all ready to show links where you can show your records of what you have done, and not just the completed one, even the progress of your ups and downs. Oh, today I did this and I failed. It's fine, document it. I think some of these things really make a difference, especially when they move out of school and they go and approach their prospective employers and they want to see how they have journeyed through whatever the learnings they have. I think that's quite important. It makes a difference to whoever's evaluating them.
Yeah. And there was also this comment from Clementine that your project reminds of because they have to do a team project in this module, and their idea was recording the lecture in a more immersive format, which is basically what you did in your the last company that you mentioned. And also interestingly now it becomes a mainstay feature of modern headsets like the Vision Pro, having spatial recording and so on. So I guess these ideas are sort of have
it's evolved and taken through the time. Good comment, Clementine.
Okay, so maybe we go back to the slides.
This was a snippet of our early journey as Immersively. So we make sure that we document all of this. And at the time as a startup, I'm the marketing officer, I'm the HR, I'm the accountant. I did have 4 staff, but they were mostly the operations. So I made sure that I took a lot of photos and I market it by putting them on social media. Every step of the way, putting them into decks and slides, so people would say that, hey, what do you do? Send me a slide, I will have it ready. And also because I've been in the education space, my first lecture was at NYP back in 2005. So all the way I've adjunct in some way or another. So the next slide shows that even when I start Immersively, I make sure that we do and specialize in education. So for example, from the very ground up children's workshop to actually learning journey at Science Center, we try to cover as much as we can wherever the opportunity comes. And I will add that this particular niche in education helps to get us through some of the bigger jobs, like when Shell requires a VR training partner, we made it through 10 other people because of our 6 years, 7 years of actually specialized learning and education niche. Whereas a lot of the others, they focus on very technical stuff like how well they program or their 3D quality. But in one of those bigger partnerships, Shell that was looking for VR training, they picked us because of this VR background. So another thing about the students is that it's good to really dive deep into one particular niche. It might not be education, you might be very, very into retail, for example, or you might like games, right? But that one niche is something that people will kind of know you for, and the niche is well and above the tech stack, so to speak. So you may also do AR VR, but like in what pillar? Are you in oil and gas? Are you in education? And it's really good to ask yourself which is this one niche that you like to do, and that's something that I think makes a difference beyond the technical knowledge.
I think that's where you leverage on your design background and sort of your training in understanding the users, right? And sort of have that stronger focus and that is what makes a difference from the rest of the industry. That's what we are talking about. Focus more on the tech, highlighting what the new cool things they can do, right?
But to extend beyond that, I mean, when you start to deliver these things for the client and sort of leave school, you may, for me, find myself in complete work stage. So for I think a better reason, I didn't that didn't really happen, as in I didn't get stuck into just working. I had the opportunity to, so let's go to the next slide. I had the opportunity to actually be featured in a lot of different places, got invited to talks covered by CNA, covered by Straits Times. And I think this part of the journey for me is also like a second phase of the learning after I've left school. So in school, I go out and visit events, but now I get invited to speak to events. But you know, these invitations to speak, they are at the most half an hour. And because the events are 2 days, 3 days, the other times that you have at the events are great times for me to go around to hear other speakers, check out the exhibits, and really absorb everything that's happening in the industry. And because of this whole experience, I really level up in many ways that I could come back and tell people, hey, actually you can do this because there's this hardware company that I saw at this event that were, so companies here were really benefiting from some of these things that I was able to sort of, you know, introduce or recommend and so on. So that gives another value add. And I think the takeaway here is that always be on the lookout for what the world is evolving or doing, not just in your own silo. You always need to, if you don't travel or get invited to events, you got to be an extensive consumer of everything online, from your TechCrunch to your VR news, and see what people are doing. You have to keep your eye on your hand on the pulse, your heart on the pulse, whatever you want to call it, and see what other people are doing. And this thing is a deliberate effort. It's not like by the way thing. It's then when you can progress with what the world is also progressing with. And I think this is sort of understated for a lot of students because they don't tune into news as much. So this is quite an important point that I thought is quite, for me, looking back now, it's sort of like a must-do. Of course, not a must-do to get invited to events to speak, that is a bonus. But to participate, to be a delegate after the event, to go and try this demo, try that demo. I mean, Silicon Valley VR was such a huge thing. I was the only Singaporean to get invited there. I spoke there. But you can really see all these VR demos. And then you ask yourself whether these things actually make sense or not. One guy was doing a VR demo to put like artists in front of you to perform personally to you. You kind of like, you know, ask yourself whether those things work or not. And so on and so forth. So there were many of these demos because it was really the height of VR. But then some didn't feel like it was working. Some was haptic, where you have to like use air to sense your. Then you're like, is that really going to work? So it really broadens your horizon to where these things are going. And it's really at these events you see what other people elsewhere are doing as well. And the breadth of it was good, from the US to Hong Kong to China. So it was quite nice.
Sounds good. Yeah. And also, you know, like if you did not like put yourself out there, you wouldn't have been invited to these events at all, right? So it's really about taking a step, a conscious step towards trying to be involved in things before people can notice you and you get more involved in the community.
Absolutely. And taking that particular point was that you don't get invited to events by not even starting on your own. So even like just speaking at student event or speaking at community events, that's a starting point. And then people will be able to say, hey, he's able to share this and let's get in for the next event, and it builds up from there. Yeah.
There's no event that's too small, right?
No, I think that's the beauty of it.
Okay.
I believe this is the last, see the next slide. The last two slides will bring me to a close of my journey or my intro, and then we can talk about the current state of things. But one of the things to bear in mind is also be aware about what our government or any government, if the students are not Singaporean, you know, what they are really advocating or pushing. In this particular case, IMDA, which is our government authority, has a specific site that says immersive media. And you go to the next slide, they put it down as the 4 frontier technologies. So as a student, you kind of know that this is, you know, to stay here means that any one of these 4 fields is something to be conscientious about, because they're going to invest into it, they're going to grow it, and obviously you can see AI is growing, and so immersive media is one of these pillars, and that's why there's a lot of focus for them to even take care of companies, introduce companies, and really push forward to it. Also because I think they will understand that these are frontier technology. That means it's probably arrived, it's still progressing. It's not like Wi-Fi where it's really stabilized kind of a thing. So there's a lot of opportunities and so-called learnings within this particular space. And so you don't really have to like guess where, you know, the tech trends are going. Sometimes it's all in the government's website. Check what they're doing, what they've put up, right? It gives you a good sensing about what's out there as well.
Yes, and I also want to just take the opportunity to mention that this Center for Immersification also wouldn't have existed if IMDA did not
support, right?
Yes, did not support it.
Yeah.
And even co-funded this center. So
and probably because they have listed there as frontier technologies, and that's why they also
exactly.
Yeah.
So indeed, this is a space to to have a foot. I mean, it's good to be involved in. It's not like a niche area. It's one of the government's focus areas.
Yep. But of course, from then to now, a lot has changed.
Yes,
from
indeed.
your Oculus One to your Vision Pro, and everything between, a lot has changed. People might feel like the Google Cardboard has died or the phones is not good. But I think one of the things that we need to recognize is it's almost like in our era, if the old social sites didn't happen, the social media wouldn't have been launched. So some of these predecessors need to have run its course. Then people will understand like, oh, that's how we interact with these headsets now. Because we had the Google Cardboard, then we had the Oculus One, people sort of see like, oh, that's how the Oculus One is better. I think if there was no Google Cardboard, everybody would struggle to even understand how to use the Oculus. And then people might just die off or just stop using it. So one of these things is really how some of these things have built up, along the way from your Quest 1 or your Oculus One to now your 3 and then your Pros. And it's all about like looking at what's ahead and how, I mean, when the first headset first came out, nothing was talked about in terms of like finger gestures. It was all controller based. And I think you ask anybody, like they will say, fingers, no way. Nobody would have kind of guessed it. Now it's almost like a de facto. Controllers are accessory add-on kind of a thing.
Yeah. Although the finger tracking leaves much to be desired, it's still. I mean, at least from the Quest. Don't want to call out anybody, but just honest experiences.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I also have a curiosity on how it works in the Apple Vision Pro.
Yep.
Recently, I saw that you had this post about first-hand experience with the Vision Pro. Just wondering,
I mean, I was very fortunate to be invited by Apple to try it out. It was a closed-door event. They were really just looking at allowing some of these invitees to sort of try it out. One thing that struck me was the gesture control wasn't limited to in front of you. So I tried the instance where I put my hand very close to my body and then also tried to interact and it picked up. So I think they were able to look at some of these things that their predecessors / other brands have done and sort of wanted to improve on it. And they find that maybe one of the things is, it's very awkward for everybody to keep outstretching their hand to gesture with it. To the layman, it looks very stupid maybe. So they, Apple, for all its elegance and its brand, want to try to make that more seamless and things like that. So they decided that, and I think that some of those things are really useful and it works. Other observations are very distinct. You have an app that you scan your face, and then the same account from the app is tied to the headset, and the headset tries to make that your face modular and customized towards you. And then when you put on a headset, it even helps you to adjust your retina. So one of the things that I think struck me after the whole onboarding process is that Apple wanted this headset to be a very personalized, non-shareable headset. Unlike the Quest, where it's like, hey, anybody can put it on and pick it up. And that's why they even have things like, I have this layer where you can even put your glasses in there just by adjusting it.
Yeah, but Apple, you sort of need the prescription.
And I think they are moving towards like really personal sort of computing that you have a own device for. And whether it's a marketing thing or whether it's a branding thing, they have their reasons for that, and I respect that. I only found the fact that I think for version 1, it paves the way. At this stage, what we're excited is how is version 3? How is version 5? And I think in this particular space, those are the things that we want to look out for. But you don't really understand or know how version 5 is going to be if you don't use as much as version 1 now. So I think in your journey, in particular the students in this space, you got to keep going at it. You got to keep using both the Quest 3 or the Quest 2 and the Visual Pro or even the HTC to sort of do that comparison. Even if it's technical, how do I push out the apps for these various ones? And what's the ecosystem behind it? I think some of these things are just important to hands-on with it. And particularly with design, I think one of the things that really struck me was even as Apple Vision Pro is as good or is as comfortable, one of the UIs that I find is that they still hung menus like as though they're dropped from air. So you have this menu that opens up and it's a flat menu that's right there. Whereas the Quest 3 has got some of these apps that are a little bit more spherical, they are curved. And I like that. I think those are the ways to go because they sort of blend in within your spherical background. And I'm surprised that Apple didn't pick up on that. Instead, they have a lot of rectangular, hang up in the air kind of a. And would that design allow for another phase of like interactivity and apps? And so I think some of these things can come from the design side of things. To see how it goes from there.
Yeah. So you talked about personalization, which is interesting, and I think is a good alternative or different approach to creating such devices. Do you think that this particular strategy needs a different kind of design or in general developing for such devices versus
Yes.
like the Quest
Yes.
3? Yeah.
Yes. So maybe on this point, I can touch on the next slide,
Okay.
which I think is. No, let's jump one slide. Go to the next one. Yeah, this one. So one of the things I think is very apparent is that the tech companies have recognized that in the era of our mobile computing, it's sort of come a long way. And they feel like if history is to repeat itself, when we moved away from the desktop computing into the mobile computing, as tech giants, as tech companies would be, they don't want to miss the next cycle. Which tech company can afford to do that? But when we move from desktop to mobile, actually many people missed it. In fact, Facebook missed it for 2 years. They still think that the website is going to be the be all and end all. So I think this particular phase of where we're going, whether we like it or not, and whether we accept what Apple called it as spatial computing, and there's a story behind it. They don't want to use XR because Oculus sort of dominated that name. The fact is, we are very happy to communicate as humans spatially. I'll sit down and have coffee with you face to face, as much as I can.
Yeah.
But it's very funny that when we go online, we face a flat screen. So we kind of compromise our online experience every time we go online because the current limitations are flat. But that's not the human makeup, right? Because if we can, all interactions should be spatial, human interactions. But because of the current either hardware or software technologies limitation, it's flat. And they believe, and I believe, that we will move away from there. One of the things that I'm learning in this current innovation journey is that if we suspend all the hardware limitations and think about the desired outcome first before we think back of how to achieve it, what do we want? I want to be able to go online just by a click of hand and everything is holographically shown in front of me, for example. Is it going to happen? I don't know, but that's the desired outcome. And if that's the desired outcome, that means we want to go online spatially without having to dive into a 7-inch screen or a 14-inch screen, for example. And then that desired outcome becomes why we understood what we are understanding now, which is you see this fourth wave that the tech companies are pushing towards because they feel that the way we compute next time has to be spatial. It's not going to a flat screen because it's not intuitive at all. And because we recognize that this so-called mobile is built on internet is built on desktop PC, and every one of these are indispensable now, the way forward is the exciting way because it's sort of like the next wave, but we cannot answer like when, right? We cannot say like, is it going to be 2 years? Is it going to be 3 years? In fact, a lot of things have accumulated in this. If data today is not as cheap as it was before, I think mobile will never take off. Everybody will be not taking out the phone because they are scared of paying lots of money just for data. But while mobile is pushing, data dropped, the cost of data dropped. So I think it's really hard to put a finger on like when is it going to happen. But we know that these things sort of make sense because we do want to interact spatially when we can. It's like I talk to you spatially, and if there is an online interaction, I turn to one side and I just do something here and I come back to you. That's almost like the naturalistic thing to do. But of course, today it's not possible. Will it be possible soon or in time to come? I think the human desire to keep that spatial interaction as much as possible. And so to me, one of the things I always try to tell people in any aspect I can is that the lifespan of a flat interaction or going online is nearing an end in some form or another. But the next form is not so clear yet. We see some efforts in glasses, but does everybody want to wear glasses? I don't think so. Is headsets going to be as clunky? Don't know. Moore's law, right, as you have known, states that we can squeeze as much as we can, but some things are just going to get this small and that's it. It cannot be even smaller than that anymore. So will that fact allow us to accept the fact that if we want to go online, we need to wear these headsets? Maybe nicer than what it is now, but that's going to be it. So I think there would be a mixture of different factors, but I just think that it's an exciting time to be now here at this emergence of this next wave of computing where we are seeing the so-called foundations or the early stages of it taking shape.
Is there something that you envision as the key factor? I know you mentioned like it's a mix of different things, but just wondering. I think this is a tough question now. So I mean, it's just getting some perspectives. Just like how AI, has become really prevalent and successful in modern days due to a confluence of both the GPUs becoming powerful,
yes,
the amount of data. It's related to Moore's law as well.
Yeah.
Every 2 years, every few years, the computing capacity doubles.
Yeah.
Similarly for storage space as well.
Yeah.
Every few years, I think it's Strider's law, whatever his name is. And then there's another law for networking, also exponential growth.
Yeah.
So all these things add together allows for much more data to be able to be trained, to be able to use for training, and then and henceforth we have these huge foundation models that fuel ChatGPT and Sora and so on. So do you feel that there is such a similar thing that will happen for your graph, right? To reach the
so
spatial.
Interestingly, you mentioned that what I think many people forgot or overlooked is that there was actually big announcement when OpenAI was first formed, and this was back in 2015. In fact, if you go and Google, you can see that there were a substantial number of news that said, the Elon Musk and Sam Altman, they're all coming together to form this entity to do OpenAI back in 2015. And when GPT-3 was released 5 years later, people were like wowed by it. But actually, the answers are in your face. These tech giants have really come and spent 5 years to so-called produce this with a considerable effort there. And back to, my early sharing about like, if you look out for tech trends and what's out there, you need to be aware about who are the movers and shakers doing what. Then you can sort of like, know where is this going. So if they have started in 2015, people would have seen they started. People would have tried different things, and that's why we see an emergence. The Samsungs of the world are not going to see this article and do like, okay, we're not going to do anything. And so they did, and that's why they did. When things come together, that means, OpenAI has released what they're going to release. Let's release ours because we also started in 2016 or 2017.
Yeah.
And that's why people, were surprised by, how come suddenly everybody seems to be very good at AI? But actually, if you look back, they all saw some of these early beginnings and knew that they cannot not do nothing about it. And so by this time where, competition has been very prevalent, then they release whatever. Of course, there are misgivings, right? Gemini didn't work and all that, but these were things that really took shape and form, back then. It wasn't started like yesterday as day one. So this particular point, I think, is important to sort of determine that if you look at these things, yes, they are now almost everywhere and AI is on everybody's lips. But then again, back in the mobile phone evolution, so was the big Motorola phone. It was also everywhere. But people wouldn't say that that's the last phone they're going to use. And in fact, the Motorola's and the Nokia's of the yesteryears all dropped out from the market because they didn't see even BlackBerry dropped out from the market because they didn't see the flat screen will just dominate. So none of the current happenings, I think, is going to dominate, but we need the predecessors to get us to the next step. So I think in direct answer to the question, the human psyche is that if it's cumbersome, it's going to take me a little bit more resistance to sort of use it every day.
Yeah.
But
totally
if
agree.
everybody is accepting that that's the best form factor, then I think they will probably say, okay, now everybody wear glasses to just go online. Then I think we reach that stage. But that hasn't happened before in human history. So it's quite interesting to see, like, where is it going to... I don't think if we look back now, we can say that everybody is going to predict that we're going to be interacting with a touch screen all the time. There was no, like, predecessors to... But it just became very natural. I think one of the things in my entrepreneurship journey was this quote that somebody asked Jeff Bezos. He said, hey, you're running Amazon, can you tell us how is Amazon going to change and how is your customers going to change in the next 5 years? So Jeff Bezos looked at the reporters and then he answered very flatly, very blankly. So I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is what the customers won't change. The customers won't pay extra for things they don't want. They won't pay above the value that they deem the price to be. And they want to make sure that they get the things fast. So he kept to the things that won't change rather than second guess what the things that will change. I think in the same way that, reply has got a profound effect on me. What is it that you think the human behavior will actually accept and what will not accept? If we're going to accept like big clunky, they won't. I think naturally they won't. Glasses, because it's so naturalistic, probably 1 in 2 friends wear glasses, so they think it's an acceptable thing. So that might be the next phase.
I see.
And that could be a starting point for even students to like think about developing apps for glasses or design for glasses just to get ahead.
Yeah, so it sounds like we sort of need, other than just now what we spoke about, the storage, computing power, as well as networking capability, we sort of need the fourth one for UI, right? UI, UX. So if UI, UX, can double every few years in terms of naturalness, or
exactly.
then
exactly.
Probably we'll get to the stage where
and I think on that note, there's still a lot of stuff within the tech industry that requires refining of the user experience. From your router boxes, to your VR headsets that people still find it clunky and so on and so forth. I think and that's probably the exciting part of it. That means that actually students in the particular tech industry have a lot of room to grow or room to play, because there's a lot of these things that still can be disrupted, and there are a lot of avenues for them to look at how to disrupt them. Till today, there's no one true formula about the touch within VR. But we know that sight and sound is just not enough. So nobody has actually come up with this yet, because it's just like, do we wear gloves? Do we not wear gloves? And so again, this is sure, there are a lot of people that have come and gone to try this out and didn't work. But what's next? Do we still need to press and all that? What about the brain control, right? So I think there are a lot of these things that we do see some developments coming, like today. But I think those are the things that are really exciting to look at in what's to come.
Yeah. And again, trying to associate with how the growth of AI is, right? And ChatGPT, I think even Sam Altman said himself that ChatGPT itself, it's more of a leap in terms of the interface. Interface is not just the web interface or the interface that we use. It's the whole package together, powered by however much system and framework behind it that provides this usable tool that everybody can just use without any issues worrying about
exactly
coming to roadblock
exactly,
so on, and trying to install stuff and
yeah,
use it.
Exactly.
Just open up the website and use.
And taking that point, because the whole ChatGPT is natural language. And even like Jensen Huang mentioned, like, is coding going to die? So I think one of the things that really helped to propel where this development or deployment is that students or anybody without that deep-rooted coding or 3D background can use like AI to get started. You know, I want a text to 3D as the baseline, right? So I can actually jump ahead now to just generate all the different shapes and then learn a bit of the 3D to build on those shapes. So you sort of leapfrog that process instead of like starting as a 3D artist from zero, about first how to model spheres and cubes, and now you use AI to generate all the base layers, and in fact in a few years time you can do a lot more than that. Then the human inputs will be to enhance that to another extraordinary level, and that helps a lot of the quality of the works out there to be better off. So I don't have to like program from the scratch or from the beginner level. I use AI to bring me up to the intermediary level. I learn coding to take me to the advanced level and make sure that all my applications are now super good. And I think that really helps to, you know, bring us to the next level of this quality of applications, for example.
Yeah, and this is also good that we're talking about this because in the module as well, in the team project, I had the bonus points for accessibility. That means being able to, you know, use whatever immersive experience that you're creating through a more accessible, like the browser. Basically, get more cross-platform so that you get more users in. Because we just want to highlight that for us, you know, in this industry, we are still at the phase of getting more adoption and trying to find what exactly is you know, this thing that gets more people in. So
coincidentally,
just thinking about
there's a Web XR news that just released today,
okay.
So they should go and check it out.
Okay.
They should go and check it out.
For pointing out there. I will go and hopefully it's good news.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, one of the things that allows a lot of the phones to be used among different demographic is that they always rely on the web browser, even though they don't want to download any apps, for example. And in the same way, one of the lowest, you know, hanging fruits for a lot of these usability would be a browser, even though it's like a piece of flat UI hung onto your spherical interface. It's still one of the ways for people to just get started because of familiarity. And then after that, we hope that you take off. If I read through a browser that is flat, can I click on it and allow the entire photogrammetry of a 3D space to evolve around me? Let's look at that, right? So I think some of these things will be interesting as a hook to get you in, and then after that show you where the rainbow is going.
Yep, totally agree. Okay, just saying that there are a couple of questions from the floor, but maybe we should look at whether you had more.
Yes, I do have some more slides. The previous
I don't
one,
want to jump through this.
Yeah,
because,
the previous one was really about. This one was actually the additional one to add on to the next one about the 4 ways of computing. Is that I think I think this is a no-brainer and everybody gets it. The line of division between the physical and digital is just so thin now. In fact, I used to tell my students this particular thing. Say, be careful of what you do online because it affects people.
So what is this? I also heard about this in a previous IMDA presentation, phygital. Why invent such a new word?
Well, I think phygital came about mainly because of COVID. They wanted something that, you know, you get sort of a physical experience when you go online. And I think that is understandable. We want that kind of like, as much physical experience as we can if we go digital. So they try to recreate like very phygital experience where your avatar is sort of like jumping through things, then the avatar sort of mimics you, is your proxy towards your physical interaction. Of course, it didn't really take off, but you know, in VR, maybe that's another avenue for that. For me, it's more the fact that a lot of your considerations for phygital affects the person's consciousness in a layer that you might not imagine. And the layer is such that if you show somebody something offensive digitally, there's no part of them that says, oh, because it's digital, half of myself, which is physical, is not going to be affected. You can't. Even though it's a digital material, the entire physical body will be affected by whatever they are going to be interacting with. Conversely, they're going to be delighting in joy with a fun app, for example. And bringing back and aligning back to my first career of creating visuals to delight, to evoke emotions. This part of application, I think, is such a gift for students, because the applications that they'll develop next time has got this profound effect to phygitize experiences for users in such a way that, yes, it's a digital experience, but they will benefit from the benefit from the experience entirely physically. So I think some of these things are great because, now I can interact to learn how the body works. I can transport myself into this particular thing that I have no ways and means to be there, because I need to pay a lot of money or to fly such a long. But these things help people access that. And I think that experience is valuable. That's why I thought it's great to include this, to remind, like, some of these things are really very valuable applications for a lot of the end users.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The last two slides, this is my second last, is that don't be impatient about where this is going, because as history has shown us, it's taken a long time for phones to even evolve. And if we take this second wave of computing, students will know that the first wave started with NASA, and the VR headset is fixed on the ground where you put your head in and you cannot move. So Oculus is kind of like deemed as a second wave, where it's a little bit more independent and solo. I don't think the second wave is the end of the wave. There will probably be a third wave. And again, I am no crystal baller to tell you how is it going to be, but if I look back on history, right, even the phones took such a long time. And I like the phone analogy because it's also a combination of hardware and software. So likewise, headsets and where spatial computing or extended reality, which is a combination of hardware and software, is probably going to take some time. But I think it's not that when you arrive at the end of it, then you feel like you have done it. But I think being part of the journey is the exciting part of it. If I look back now, I love to be a telco, pioneer that sort of evolved from the Motorola and sort of grew myself into, the 5G revolution or the touchscreen today. That will be such an exciting journey to see how is it going. So likewise, I think it's an exciting time for the students to be involved in this current phase and then journey on to, through the evolutions of how spatial computing or extended reality is going to take shape and form.
Yeah, the earlier you get your foot in, the more rewards you will reap
Yeah,
from.
and keep doing and looking out for everything that's changing along the way. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. This is the last slide. A little bit of the takeaway with regards to keep an eye on everything else that's happening. And also my firm belief that just VR, XR or spatial technology as a stack is not going to really propel it forward. It's got to be a combination of a few things. Cloud, for example, where we might even do away with hard disk in the headset. 0 gigabytes. You don't even need a storage, maybe, because everything is cloud. Right? I mean, some of these things we need to keep an eye out, because it could be the game changer for, where this is going. 3D, with just text prompt, you don't even have to model. So when we start to look at the progress and evolution of how the other things are moving forward, then we might be able to see, wow, what's the next phase of where we're going in this particular space. So good to keep an eye out on like, for example, I love this story. Microsoft always commanded 5K, 6K for their HoloLens. Between 2016 to 2018, everybody was like, I can't buy a HoloLens, it's so rare, and everybody wants one, but it's so expensive. The next thing you know, Oculus came out with the pass-through, right? And then after that, Apple Vision Pro came out with the pass-through, color, higher resolution, and suddenly the HoloLens did. In fact, Microsoft saw this and killed off the whole department. They can't compete. You now have a headset that can do both AR and VR in one headset. Nobody's going to buy them anymore. So before the industry called them out, they just decided that it's so as big as a tech company that didn't even see their own product being disrupted. I think the whole tech stack is going to be so exciting to see what else is going to be coming up.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're up to something else.
Yeah.
Not sure currently.
Yeah, but I love the fact that they didn't see that disruption about how the one headset could allow that. It was always distinguished as AR is your phone, MR is the HoloLens. In fact, in those days, 2016 to 2019, whenever you type mixed reality, only HoloLens will show up.
Yeah,
It became like the default.
that's right. I told the students as well. Microsoft sort of grabbed that
Yeah,
term
but
and sort of
they also
transformed into
lost
their
it
own.
immediately. Yeah. So it's really interesting to see, like, I mean, are they the Nokias of the yesteryear? Sort of like lost the whole. So that's quite an interesting, development.
Yeah,
Of
although I would say that they still play a big part
They
in,
do, they
in
do.
driving
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
forward,
yeah,
right?
they do.
Yeah, so we all appreciate Microsoft for
Yeah,
all
for
your
sure.
money and
For
effort,
sure.
research.
Again,
yeah.
without them, they wouldn't understand like what is the MR thing.
That's right, that's right. Yeah.
They do.
Okay, and I like this slide because it shows that in this space or in at other domains where we try to develop some novel technology. I think it is always a mix, a huge mix of various different computer science, concepts and foundations that we need to basically built on top of that it makes sense, especially for the students in this module to understand that you need to make some effort in learning a lot of the various different aspects that make up this simulation, and then eventually convey immersive experiences now. So
if a fellow student asks you to come in for their simulation project, go and join them, help them out if time allows. Just to get experience, because a lot of things do come together. They kind of combine, and good to understand like what other people are doing as well.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe before we look at the questions.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Originally, I have some other questions.
To
ask. Maybe a bit unique to what you have done before as well.
Yes.
The first one is that I see that. You have some experience with cryptocurrency and NFTs related to building metaverses. All these terms are like not the most well-defined things, but since you have dabbled in this and we have never covered any of these things here, but I feel that it is
good to know
related. And,
just
how
so immersively,
what is the role of these these things in creating this experience?
So Immersively was acquired by a land developer who builds properties and hotels, and they wanted my team and I to sort of build a virtual 3D world, because at the height of the Web3 or Metaverse, people were selling these 3D worlds, on cryptocurrency. They were selling virtual lands and all that.
Yeah.
Of course, today we know all of that has died. But the acquisition was because they also wanted this asset that they think that they could sell to the public, so that they buy virtual land and all that. And in fact, during those times, if you really surround yourself with the media, even BBC was reporting about how people were making money from virtual land, so to speak. So it was something that I, entered because Immersively was acquired and tasked with like building it and really dive into this whole understanding of crypto and NFTs. But I look back now, maybe there were a lot of these things that didn't pan out as everybody knew, but some of this logic is actually sound. If you are constantly interacting with digital assets online, what has remained true today is that a lot of your interactions, your input doesn't belong to you. What this metaverse and NFTs is trying to do is that they're trying to ascribe your effort back to you. If you're going to put in this effort into a virtual land, you should be able to earn this land by selling it some way and form, and not let Facebook or any of these tech companies dominate what you have posted. Because whenever you interact to upload content, as it is currently, the tech companies own everything. So the ethos of where this whole phase came about was that they wanted to see how some of these, and today is still, this ideology still exists. For the longest time, you spend maybe $20 for a whole suit of armor in the game, but you don't own the armor. In the game, it's just you playing it, but the company that publishes the game benefits from your $20. What they're trying to say is that you can then take this armor and actually see whether it will go up in price and even sell it for a profit because it's entirely yours. And how do you prove it's yours? When it's on the blockchain. So actually, there's some sound ideology and reasoning from there. And in fact, I don't think it's died out yet, because today the blockchain still has a very, very distinct space. In fact, a lot of people said if ticketing today is on blockchain, you have no scams and maybe, but unless the entire industry is in on it, it's very hard to implement it. So I think we are seeing some signs of this happening, and don't brush it off. It's bound to still come up and emerge along the way. And something about the owning and digital asset and digital identity that is part of you because you sort of invested into it, whether you pay for it or whether you have created it, is still a sound logic.
So to the students and maybe other developers who are trying to learn all this sea of knowledge to develop immersive applications, do you think like learning how to develop blockchains or work with blockchains is essential, or
I think
is it something only unique to Metaverse? Maybe we
no,
should even
I think
define
at
what
the I think at the baseline, because a lot of these terms out there, they must know. If anybody in the public comes along and say, "Hey, you're a tech student, tell me about blockchain," they must be able to say at least in 2 sentences what is it. Same goes with 5G. Same goes with as a baseline, these are all must knows. But at which point do they really spend time to dive deeper into it? It's really hard to say. Do we need any of the VR assets to be on blockchain now because you want to own it? Why is there a need for that, for example? So you need to ask yourself whether that need is recognizable around the world or among the users, because right now they're very happy if they publish the game and you can sell it and you can still collect. Then what is the loss for you not to put it on blockchain, for example? So if people don't see that there's a reason that they need to own it because they still be able to monetize, for example, what you are doing, then actually less people will be convinced to just put it on blockchain, because the demand and supply of a lot of applications today are still sound. If there's any one way that people will say, once you publish, your game belongs to me, then people will be like, okay, I'm going to put all my games on blockchain. So today the platforms are still quite fairly fair. They take a cut, and maybe if you don't like Apple's 30%, you decided to put yours on blockchain somewhere else, then okay, that's a good enough reason to say I'm going to put all my applications on blockchain because I don't want to be part of Apple's ecosystem. But can you afford to? They got the biggest reach. Which other blockchain platforms has got the kind of reach? So it's always been this question about, is it time now for you to think about owning it because of blockchain? And does the current ecosystems come to such a bad level where you cannot work with them anymore? I don't think so.
So Clementine asked a question. Sorry to skip all the questions on the
No
Ask Me Anything.
Yeah.
Since this is pertinent to our discussion now, the question is data in a blockchain impossible to alter, and does that make it back for the rapid iteration of game data?
Yeah, it's immutable. So when you are, it's immutable. So when you are on chain, it will be on that block, and then it goes from there.
Yeah. So I think what we are discussing is using this unique quality of what a blockchain is, whether it is useful as something a developer should know about, and incorporate in his her development.
I think importantly, all developers should not be blindsided to only the tech side of things. They should always keep an eye on all the other things, which is what is the business angle, what is the economic angle. You can't just say, I want it to be on blockchain because it's sexy, but nobody wants it, then it's not going to move. So if you don't know about it, you either find out or you ask somebody, right? Is it worthwhile to put my applications on blockchain, and see whether any economic or economically inclined student will be able to give you some insights into it. But the bottom line is, you need to understand the tech and then justify why you're doing it. So at this point in time, every VR application is on every of the public portals or platforms, from Steam to your Apple Store, whatever it is, because the current ecosystem is still acceptable for many of the creators. Whether it's 10%, 30%, you still get the bulk of whatever you can. Economically, it's still viable, and economically, it's still sound for you. Unless whatever you put online, you run the risk of it being taken away from you, then people are going to be like, so you can't just be blindsided to say, oh, blockchain is sexy, I'm just going to do it. That's probably not going to work. But that being said, if there are some of them that feels like I got this very unique artistic creation, and ArtStation and every one of this is not going to give me good enough margins, then they probably put it on blockchain and find another platform that they can get 100% proceeds from. Then maybe it's worthwhile for them to look at that direction. But just to do on blockchain without economic reason or sound or picture, sure, it could be a vanity project. Like, it could be something to say I can do it, and it's part of my showcase or showreel. Then okay, sound, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are many ways to utilize blockchain technology
Yes.
to address some problems that we have in developing this kind of applications. So one way is one problem is the monetization, and making it fairer for maybe small individual indie developers to get a share of the pie, so to say. But another popular concept is how the blockchain enables assets to be transported across different different applications, right? Which is what some people deem to be the word matter. What the matter means, like bigger than just one space, right? So do you think that is something that, because it has been spoken about, like when Meta changed its name to Meta, I mean Facebook changed its name to Meta, but now that don't really hear about.
No.
Yeah.
I think the ecosystems are still very close, right? You can't directly. The holy grail is, whenever I go to any websites, I press the upload button and a photo is just easily uploaded. From social media to even so many, right? All recognizes the simple upload. And also that's because JPEG, GIF, PNG are all recognizable file extensions everywhere. But every other thing doesn't have that kind of recognizability, especially 3D, for example. USDZ is not recognizable, and a lot of other platforms out there. So we haven't come to a stage whereby it's so interoperable across all these different platforms. And that makes it a lot harder to say that, I'm going to have this. I mean, even right now, if you want to submit to Apple Vision Pro, I don't think your .apk is going to work.
Oh, of course.
For example. So some of those things is still, you have to follow whichever platform owners you want to work on or work with. Yeah. So I don't think but because of this, there's no extreme desire to say, I'm going to just put it on blockchain. It's not going to solve your fundamental problem. So the idea for the blockchain consideration is really, if you feel very strongly that your digital asset from your game to your application needs to be on a chain such a way that any of these platforms recognize that you are the only owner of it to dictate how you want it to be transacted, then maybe there's some consideration. Or you feel that you want to immortalize this, in the chain so that it is not going to be able to be copied in any form or shape. Then, so basically, fundamentally understanding what is even the whole blockchain about first before you consider that.
Yeah. I think the notion is that the blockchain is the technology that will enable the interoperability and but
No,
I think
not
that
yet.
it depends on whether there is a need or use case for people to want to do that.
And for those of us who know, I mean, there are so many chains, so even that is a big consideration.
Which chain?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, well, I think we should move on.
Yes.
Maybe we should look at the questions so that we make sure we address some of the questions from the students who are live in this session now. Okay, so first one. How would you recommend new undergraduates to practice immersion and VR in self-teaching? Self-teaching, okay.
That means self-learning.
Yeah, just learning, I guess, if you want to elaborate. But I think that's what you mean. So further on, what you said is just open Unity and mix stuff. Or is there a more user-involved process?
I would take it that his meaning here is that he wants to self-learn.
Yeah.
Right? Not to teach, or is that what he's trying to say?
So basically, I think beyond what is taught in class, how should one actually go about practicing developing for immersive applications?
I used to teach design thinking and mobile UI in NUS during the COVID time. And one of the homework that I made every student do is every week you must at least try at least 5 to 6 apps in the store.
Try this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because one of the best learning is what's out there. Download the app, really go and use it and get the whole feel about, what these apps are doing or not doing as an end user. And then go and assess them. Is the whole user journey good enough for you? Do they understand? Because it was a design thinking and user experience
Sure.
class. So it's all about the design, about whether you understand the functionality of the app, what you're trying to do, and basically evaluate and then put your thoughts down, and then they come to class to sort of present. And I think that's a starting point. You don't actually make stuff because you're relying on your own so-called skill set to.
Yeah.
But there are so many apps out there to even try.
Yeah.
And every week, if you commit yourself to try 5 to 6 apps, 100% from launch, of the first app to all the way through, that's a lot of learning for you to even get started already.
Yeah.
And good and bad. The bad apps, go and use it, right? Go to the store and find the 1-star rating and install and use it. It's through the bad ones and a mix of the good ones, then they really understand, like, okay, what is the immersion that is there or not there. And,
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we all, especially as more developer inclined people, like a lot of the students here, with the computer science as the foundational aspect of the degree, tend to want to go and just dive into creation. Although the example you gave was the NUS module in design thinking, and probably you focus on the more evaluation. But I think even in a module or in your own endeavor of trying to create stuff, I think we sort of always overlook the fact that we need to go and use what other people have done first. As even for me as in my researcher role, a lot of us sort of skim through the existing research without diving the necessary depth and then understanding what exactly have others done. Then we can do something that is really novel and do something that is actually contributes to something significant. I think that is very important to emphasize in our context here, is actually using, especially this new space, using a lot of the apps that are basically in the Quest store.
I would even recommend the students sort of like shortcut some of these things during the time I was recommending to them. They find it a chore to test the apps and then go to the laptop to type it down. I say, no need. Just put a phone next to you, get another phone to test the app, put the phone on audio recorder, voice all your thoughts. When you're using the app, just curse and swear. And then you just use the voice to transcribe whatever it is. And because it's when you're voicing it, you really get the ins and outs of your experience. And for many of them, they love it because then they don't have to postpone the experience, go and type it out and then go back to it's just a very fluid, like, okay, I'm going to touch on the home button and then, this one failed, and just voice everything out. And then becomes a very collated and comprehensive like experience journey that they can. So same, put on a headset, use the voice and, I cannot find where's this, like, this is good. And voice that and get the whole like learning through the experience.
Yeah, and then get some AI tool to help you summarize all your thoughts and make it into a nice format. Maybe go and buy the Meta glass, right? And it's already has that those features in there.
They just need to type Google AI audio to text summary. I'm sure there's a lot out there.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the glass is always there, so when you speak, it's already processing. Okay, good idea. Okay, so.
And in fact, I mean, after trying it, maybe 5 to 6 apps later, go to Unity and challenge yourself to do something better.
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
And then realize it's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, certainly trying to, dive into creating the stuff in Unity or other things, it's still essential. But we're just saying here that is something that I think we don't need to...
Get the exposure first.
But the necessary thing that most people miss is getting the exposure and understanding
because
your
there's so many out there already, to try. Yeah.
Okay. So there are the long list of comments from Clementine on this topic. Yeah, just reading. Yes, you play Steam games, forget to play. Okay, to try more apps. Yeah, I know we all lack time, right? But sometimes, we just need to choose more cleverly, a broad range of things to try. Blog of review. Yeah, in fact, just now Lionel was talking about writing a blog of
he or she is just commenting all the different points we shared.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Answer. Okay, what are some VR industries in Singapore that might be overlooked?
In Singapore,
Hey, this one, you have the most.
Yeah.
You're in the best position to answer.
Training simulation is the most well looked. In fact, a lot of
I agree. Yeah.
a lot of hospitals that are already using it and all that. The real estate staff and all that is not that they're overlooked, but the cost doesn't justify. So a lot of these things to deploy at like a consumer-wide level, they just can't justify. Are you going to get that much hardware? Is it going to be in the phone? So it's not that it's overlooked, but it always boils down. I mean, if you're talking about the industry, means as a business application, then boils down to just cost revenue. So one of those things that is definitely cut across the board is simulation, property. Everybody knows that these things will help, but when you start to look at the math and it just doesn't do justice.
Okay, so it still boils down to economics.
Yeah, it still does. It still does.
Although we know that it really improves the experience of such things, but people are not doing it. Because,
But then again, I would question the question. Because we are digital, we are application based, then shouldn't limit to just Singapore. There are more than enough avenues for now your app to be listed in a marketplace that can be accessed internationally. Just take the Oculus store for one. Or each, a lot of these things are already out there, and I think the student's mindset is if you make a transition from graduating from school into the marketplace or the workforce, then everything you do should be outward looking. Regional sale, international appeal, those things would then help you to leapfrog. Doesn't have to be constricted to just Singapore per se.
Yeah. But I think the student is more looking for ideas to spin off his not spin off, but create a new novel VR application. I think if there's really something novel, Lionel will keep to yourself. And
No.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you might consider is actually the underserved consumer market. So one of the things that I came to know was how one of the hospitals even have a VR simulation for people that were just starting to use the wheelchair. Yeah. And because it seems like no training is involved, but actually before they even sit on the chair, they have a VR simulation. So I think time to look at the underserved demographic in the society and not like the always looked in, like what is mentioned here. And I think the aspect of the underserved could be a starting point for what could be overlooked.
Yeah. I briefly spoke about accessible immersive experiences as well. So to us able-bodied people, I mean, we all sort of treat this kind of headsets kind of experience as the kind of de facto immersive experience. But to the blind, or people who cannot have issues of hearing, I think immersive can be sort of brought forward in a different way. So these things are certainly both in terms of novelty, it is novel, and as well as contributing to the society, bringing forth these experiences, this kind of really quite out of the world experiences, if you're doing it for the first time, to the underserved as what you mentioned. It's a good thing.
Yeah. I recall this one time where I think there was this 2016 or 2017. It was a VR film, so it wasn't really like an industry application. But this filmmaker was using VR to sort of translate how one person was slowly losing his sight. So in full VR, you can see everything, and then through that journey, it was a non-interactive film. The visual started to get blurry. And then the audio was still maintained. And then toward the end of the film, the sadness about how he's lost his sight. It was meant to be a film, emotive film. But the way the response it got at some of these VR film festivals, people were crying in the headsets, empathizing at how this person lost their sight. I think they're kind of like losing of a sense on whether you are helping underserved community or patient about the dangers of some of these things. Could be further looked into. What is it like to have glaucoma or cataract? You don't think it's serious now, but you put this on and realize that that's how you'll be looking. Would you be taken aback to do your checks or things along those lines? They're really overlooked in a way that is underserved.
We did a similar thing many years ago for dementia.sg as well, a dementia hub website, which is to let the public basically empathize with people with dementia lah. So it's a similar thing. Try to recreate the experiences. Which you never experience if there wasn't VR. Right? Okay lah. Yeah. So that's a lot of ideas already. So hopefully you will pick up some of them. Industry trends for mainstream VR software dominated by Unity, or are there other alternatives? Okay.
What do you mean by mainstream VR software? You mean like the engine to develop?
Yeah, what to use to develop which I guess this question is pretty obvious It's Unity, right?
Yeah.
So
that being said, I think the Vision Pro is got its own software called Reality OS, which they can find the documentation online. So
I mean basically using Apple's native development system. Apple is always the most
by itself,
closed,
right?
So you want to develop on Apple. Actually, you can also develop through Unity. Recently I spoke to the people from Apple as well. So they also try and make it more accessible to other developers by having Unity also being able to build for the Vision Pro. In fact, you were talking about Jensen Huang. In his keynote recently in GTC, there was also mention about Apple Vision Pro, which I think it's almost a first. So NVIDIA and Apple systems interacting is also not the most common thing we see nowadays. So it's good that industry is also trying to make things more accessible across. Okay. So I mean the short answer is Unity, but
I won't see it as like is the industry dominated It's like how many years ago, but today Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office is still dominating a lot of the so-called corporate offices and all that.
Because dominate doesn't mean it is the best for your use case, right?
Also the question is, are the alternatives any better? So if there isn't any, then we shouldn't be preoccupied with like who's dominating the.
Correct.
It's more on like what's the value add I can use, with the dominant software. If today people want to use Unity for Vision Pro but they lack plugins, then can I actually rise to the occasion to develop a plugin so that future Unity users could use my plugin to do a better Vision Pro app, for example? I think that's the opportunity here.
And I think really look at what your own requirements are for developing, rather than looking at what's the most popular. Running along the word analogy, I think for us as researchers, when we write papers, a lot of us computer science researchers, we don't use Word. We use a computer. We use a programming based text editor or text tool called LaTeX, which allows you to write more consistently formatted things and easily modifiable things across long-ish technical papers. So because of our requirements, we don't use Word. I mean that there are people who also still use Word, but to a lot of us, I think that is better matches what we want to use it for. So even though Word is like the de facto for every document creation process, right? But still, there's a lot of us who choose something else because of how we see more value in using a more niche
for many
product.
people, like Google Docs really slowly take over as well. So
true also. It's for collaboration. I feel it's
it's the way to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Next. So hello. Okay. What? Miss any of your company open? Okay. Internship. Very open question here.
What? Anon, right? Or Anon?
Anon.
I'm sorry to say my company was already acquired and I left. So I do not...
Are you asking about SPH? That one? So Lionel doesn't represent SPH in this conversation. Yeah.
But if it's immersively, it's really been acquired and
Okay.
It's in the hands of somebody else.
So we need to go to the next question. Yes. Yeah. Okay, should we just document everything we have done? Work in progress, student stuff, regardless of quality? Or should we curate it based off quality?
No. I think it's good to have a mixture of the bad experiences. I did this, it didn't work, and here's why. I put out all my errors, as well as the good stuff. And the good stuff could be what people have done, and you know come to learn about it as well, not just your own stuff. Hey, today in class I went to try out this person's app and it was brilliant, and then you talk about why it's brilliant. I think some of these things really goes to show that you learn from it because you are documenting and sort of evaluating and putting down into a very detailed format about your chain of thought, and that's always good to sort of document. And of course, I think additionally, we might score brownie points with your professors to know that everything that you have done shows, the way of how you have also assessed your own work as well as other people's work when you document some of those things. Because nobody can read your mind. Obviously, if you can find a way to document it and present it or share it, I think it will show that, you're really looking forward and leaning towards just learning on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I think depending on the what you are documenting it for yourself, certainly I think for your own reflection that all these things should be in, but also for if we relate it to our module or the school submissions, I think I always encourage students to also include things that they have done wrongly, or the problems that they have encountered and how what they did to resolve them. I think that's really shows that the students are trying to try things, fail, and then apply it more correctly. Okay, next. What is a good example of a niche? Is it the application or the tech? Example, is VR specifically for training considered a niche, or is it using MetaQuest in Unity for practical applications?
Okay. I think the answer to the question really stems from when I mentioned that when you have a startup, it's good to be specializing in a niche like education for me. So going back to the question, which I infer that is the one thing that sparked off this question, it's very different if you talk about this question pertaining to you as a student now and to you as a business owner. Because if you have a niche as a business owner that people in the industry recognize you for, people will come to you. It's almost like, hey, I need to fix my tab. Who do I call? Oh, Mr. So-and-so, because he fixed tabs. So that reputation for being niche in incredible and reputable in the particular industry to this tech stack in the industry because you are a business owner is of course different when we talk about you now as a student. Your role as a student probably cannot afford to be, in a particular niche because you have so many different assessment modules and so on to speak, and you know best about that. But should you leapfrog after graduation to want to go into a business or business owner, then I would advise you to look at which niche you want to do. So that is actually the sharing or advice pertaining to this vertical or niche to specialize in.
And I would say that, if you're trying to find something to like maybe start a company or something, both application or the tech can be niche, but importantly, I think it should address some critical or important problem that current users have with the technology. Like what we had mentioned, accessibility, or the most natural device to be worn on the head or something like that. As a business owner case, it goes beyond just what is niche and what is not. You need to do your market research about whether this particular market, has a gap. Are people already providing for it? In the beginning, when we talk about VR for surgery, we just started to do demos, and then my developer said, hey, there's already a US company that's really gone very far ahead with this. So yes, there's a need, but again, the market demand has sort of been met. So before you want to decide on a niche, you might also want to check out like
the usual business things, market competition, whether it's an underserved market and things like that. And that goes beyond just like what is good to, I mean, sure, you follow your passion for what you like, but again, in a business context, it's different because if there's no demand for it or it's really very well served, then it's a different story.
Yeah, I would add to that as it's always a balance lah. Maybe you really have a passion for surgery and using VR for surgery, then you should dive deep into understanding what the existing company has done, and then see whether you can create something alternative and to address a different, more targeted aspect of the VR surgery problem lah. If you're really interested in that, but it's always a balance between many different factors on what to pursue. Right?
I will also add, in any case, because you're not going to be looking at starting a business anytime soon and you want to find a niche, in this particular student days, one of the good things to explore is, of course, the grants pertaining to art. Because there are a lot of art grants out there, whether it's local or international, that looks at the combination of tech with art. You do have to do the due diligence of applying formally and filling out everything. But when you do get awarded, that whole art niche allowing you to use art and tech to create different works could be a very interesting learning experience as well.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, if you have any suggested grants for students, I can pass them.
You just need to Google and find
Google.
Which are the open calls for art tech, for example.
But certainly there are many other grants. I mean, there are many different grants available for students to apply.
Yeah. I'm also part of a new community called the Creative Technologists.
Oh, okay.
So they're a mixture of technologists and creative and artists. We just had an event 2-3 weeks ago. Just ping me or look at Creative Technologists SG. And they publish and they actually upload a lot of like grant calls. Hey, this grant is out there. So they do a lot of that as well. So if the students are interested, they can be looped into that as well.
Yeah, good. We don't know who you are, so we don't know if you're asking too many questions. What are some ways to get started in events in Singapore and seek them? Community center, library, expos that are open to public. Events in Singapore.
Go to the two main ones, so meetup.com and Eventbrite. Then select the filters to like free and tech. And then see what are the events out there. So there are actually quite a lot that's happening as well. I mean, Meetup is a little bit more intensive because you join the group and you sort of like have to attend the event. Eventbrite is a little bit more ad hoc, right? It depends on which time of the year, when you can just pop in and all that. But because they're different, you can really grow through Meetup because the community can be sustaining. And if you go for a long time, that Meetup group can be your community whereby you are very familiar with them as you grow and things like that.
And I think IMDA runs, I don't know whether they're still running any meetups for, it used to be games and then there was some immersive tech. But yeah, you don't know as well, right? Yeah, okay.
They're always changing, so it's always good to
changing.
good to. So for example, in June there's a very big IMDA event, and it's free to attend. You should just go and sign up. It's called ATXSG, right?
Oh, okay.
And then June there's also Broadcast Asia. So there are a lot of these. Don't just go to the event and just like walk around. Look at some of the panels and the sessions. Who's talking what? ATXSG. I think all this should be free. Find a way to get your pass and things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So really good to get involved in some of these things.
All right. So the main thing is always keep a lookout for these things.
I used to be very showy. Every time I go to event, I collect the lanyard, come back with the tag. It was such a huge collection.
Yeah, and that's also an advice lah. When you go to events, have an agenda to talk to people, be a bit joey, right? Try and
this mine from this morning.
Okay, this morning was ex speaker. Okay, that's why you were late, right? So you had
I was speaking at the event at the hotel.
I see. Okay, I think that's all the questions from the floor. And I understand that you also have I mean, do you?
I'm good. Any other?
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? I'm happy to.
Okay, sure. Maybe I'll just ask something broad lah,
Yeah.
related to students who are interested in pursuing a career in just immersive technologies in general.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key skills you feel? I think we broadly touch on some things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is that
I think in
set
the
of essential?
I think in the industry today, a lot of people are looking beyond what is your school portfolio. So it is good to go beyond. Okay, this is 5 projects I have for school, but I still have additional 2 more from events that I attended. Or in addition to the 5, I have also come together with my friends and created these 2 others that weren't part of the requirements from school. I think the fun stuff or the outside of the school projects to show the additional development or exploration into this particular space is a very good testament to show in the future you have something way above the basic requirement, and it almost becomes the de facto for a lot of employers now, because they want to see okay, what is the base that you have? Everybody seems to have the base, so what makes you different? So I think some of these things is almost like the prerequisite for going out there right now.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So having a base portfolio, is that
Having
something-
additional portfolio that shows above beyond the school requirements, whether it is like for casual hackathon or just you and your friends coming together to explore different things. It could even be an extension of the school project. So I did this for school and I'm able to have 1 feature, but after I've handed it in, me and my friends are continuing to build 5 more features, and we're even going to upload it in the store. I think these signs are really good as a stepping stone to tell potential employers next time. It's like, hey, I've done way beyond some of these things.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
At SIT we do this individual interviews for every student, which takes quite a fair bit of time, but we found that it's necessary to especially understanding some students who don't have the background but are really passionate. So for these students who don't have the background, and so we sort of look for such things, that what they have done in their own time, whether they have really made an effort to try and see what it takes to build a game, or something related to software. And then through that we can actually already look past what they were trained on, and maybe poorer grades than the rest, but they show that most of their time they were really passionate about building this thing, which is not what the previous diploma or degree program is about. So I think that's.
I love how some of the stories from the other students that goes beyond their school curriculum, because in their daily interactions outside of school, they might notice that, hey, SMRT is using a simple QR code for people to complain, and I can do better than that. And then they devise something better than that, even though it wasn't so-called ordained by SMRT or commissioned by them. But they take it upon themselves to see what are some of these gaps, out there in the society, and take it upon themselves to find a way to improve it so it's better. And at the end of the day, when it's done, it's supposedly better than what's out there. It's really for you to take it to the next level. Can you contact SMRT to say, hey, I'm a student graduating and I've done this, happy for you to use it, or happy for you to give me your comments? And those could be your opening. I think the direct application of the skill set learned here with the whole marriage to the industry, it's got so many levels they can explore, and some of these things can be very self-initiated.
Yeah, agree. Okay, so one other question that I prepared was related to evaluation, because of how your experience, I think, comes more from design thinking, and understanding users. So for methods wise, do you use any particular, or are you particularly fond of a way to understand whether the thing you developed actually provide the right experience?
Okay.
Yeah.
question. And again, I attribute it to my past, which I feel that it should be something I drill to the students. Nothing of what they have done in the past is wasted, even on this particular so-called tech journey. Whether you're from Singapore or not from Singapore, or whether you have worked in a supermarket, I think every aspect of life skills do bear a part. And in my case, because I spent considerable time in media, and I spent about 9 years as a director of lifestyle and documentaries. So one of the things about this particular genre is that I need to go and find out from these people that I'm going to be doing a production on, what is it that they're doing. If I'm going to a hospital, I need to talk to the nurses, talk to the doctors before I concept my stories to shoot the story. So there's a lot of these things that I need to do the groundwork for, to empathize what is the story essence before I shoot it. And in that many ways, I find that this one thing that translates to what I'm doing now is boils down to the whole design thinking ethos. Before you push something, in the hands of users, what is it that in their psyche they want to use it? How much do you understand about their wants and needs to want to use it? It's sort of like, if I want to do a documentary on the nurses, what is it I want to do the documentary about? Is it their hard work, that is really out there, or is it there's something else? And I think that whole understanding of that user at the fundamental level should be the default for a lot of developers, to first understand who is the target user and what is the one thing that you don't see and can only be achieved by really getting into their skin or under their skin, and not like, oh, I've seen videos of this person and I think they need this, then I develop for it. So I think in that sense, it's all like, if you don't even get a chance to speak to your end user, I don't think you have done, the complete work of empathizing and understanding them to even develop the application for them. So a lot of times it's just good to get, some kind of interaction with them, whether it's a easy phone call or just like a short Google Meet or whatever it is. 15 minutes could do wonders in a lot of this uncovering about what's the user's background and perspective.
Okay, yeah, that's a good addition to again what we are having the students do in this module, which primarily
And you can document it. I spoke to this. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what I was talking about is primarily we have the students do the user evaluation after the fact. That means after they have built it, and then they test whether what they have built actually provides for the right experience they envision for the right level of immersion. For example, presence and cyber sickness, for example, they see whether it's what they envision. But I think it's a good thing to highlight that the before part is also as or maybe more important, right?
It could be twofold. So the first part is really a very first touch. I call you, I Google Meet, I get the sensing, and then I build it. And then after I build it, I meet you in person and I actually allow you to try it out. So it could be a very before and after kind of experience, for example.
Yeah, and I find that maybe there's some new design knowledge that can be explored in terms of how do you have a process that empathizes with users in terms of just understanding their immersion goals, right? You are trying to build some VR thing, then you're trying to understand what does the user want to do with the VR, just focusing on immersion, because right now I don't think there is a clear idea on how to empathize with immersion.
And again, like even on a limited 40-minute Zoom session where you can even record it and share it, you could just do a call with your end user, and then post development, take the headsets or the hardware to the end user and let them try it out, and then actually reconcile what was before and after. I think that would be a thorough experience, end to end, so to speak.
Generative AI. I saw it in your as part of your description of your current role. Although again, I must caveat that you're not representing SVH, but just wondering your thoughts about how generative AI, which is all the rage now, is affecting this
the current
industry.
role is because generative AI is very disruptive to what the current daily newspapers are doing, which is your print, your text, your video, your audio. So there must be some, everyday evaluation of where this space is going. And I think that space is going a few ways. One is the privacy and the regulation side of things is coming. Is probably going to be something that is going to be very restrictive in terms of what's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that we will not be able to use it completely. I think it will be more on like, okay, they need to first attribute where the source is, and then you can be allowed to use it. So I think right now, personal opinion is that for 100 of these tools out there, 50 will die off because they don't meet the regulation or whatever it is. So for the end user, it's really to understand like what are some of the best tools out there and how to use them. For example, one of the video editing tool doesn't actually generate original AI videos, but they go to the stock bank and they help you to put down a whole sequence of stock images according to your script. So they edit for you. That's almost like very sound because it doesn't infringe on any AI. It helps you to actually line out your edit, which otherwise you have to go and do one by one, which I thought, yeah, this will probably be a good skill, to sort of be specializing in if you're in that space. So I think one of the things about generative AI is to really be discerning about what is it that's probably going to affect with regulation, and then really allow yourself to be very skilled on it. So in the particular space that's probably most relevant to the students would be, for example, text to 3D. And one of the software I love is this software called Spline 3D, right? So Spline 3D allows you to interact via text to 3D objects as the base layer. And now they even have environments. So you can leapfrog. And from a developer, maybe it's very hard to do 3D because it's not the same skill set. But now you have no further reason to say, I don't do 3D, because a lot of these tools do allow you a very basic level of 3D to be used in your Unity development. So you can start looking at some of these AI things to complement your skill set. And of course, keep an eye on Devin AI, right?
What is that?
Oh, it's programming AI.
I see. Okay, there's a lot of programming.
Yeah, so Devin is supposedly going to take over a lot of programming jobs because he does all the programming. Still yet to be proven, I see.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, a lot of us who deals with programming on a regular basis already use a lot of these tools. Yeah. Okay, so AI tools. So you find that it's going to disrupt how we create.
It is. Yeah, it is. And I think the best thing that you can do now is to really look at which ones that you have direct use case for and to just dive into mastering them.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess as what you mentioned, the main thing that I think it helps with developing these immersive experiences is actually the programming aspect. I think the art side, due to how a lot of this content is still 3D and very highly complex in terms of the fidelity, I think we don't have such tools yet to create 3D. Sora may be the next big thing to create, rendered, video-based imagery.
Spline does very simple 3D. Yeah, you can check it out. Yeah.
I see. So that there are some simpler tools.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, keep your eye on things like Meta Research. They just released a paper about taking the headset, scanning the whole room, and then you can actually deploy it already. So I think some of these things are quite exciting about what's to come.
Yeah. In fact, we also show some of the research from Meta.
Yeah.
To students here as well.
Yeah, and they seem to be open sourcing everything. So quite interesting.
I really like their whole ethos about outsource everything or Llama and I don't think they outsource everything but at least they outsource a lot of the important
a lot of stuff things that people can use.
Yeah.
You can directly pull from the Git. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I also see that you have quite a number of awards. I mean, back then when you were doing media. Film. So did those kind of experience, how does it influence your work in immersive technologies?
Not so much.
Okay.
But I would say that if you're a business owner, the awards go a long way. They really sort of almost like mirroring how you would get awards as a student and then allow you to stand out. The awards in the business landscape allows a lot of companies to pick you because of the awards.
I see.
Yeah, so they do. I mean, the film side of things, yes, it's very good. You do get more opportunities, with these awards. But if you're a business owner, for example, that makes a very big difference. Yeah.
Okay. So I think actually we have run over the time allocated for this class, but I think it's fine. We have the students are actually, I know
Yeah, I hope they enjoy all our little nuggets here and there.
Sure. Just wondering if there's any last things you want to say to students or the developers who are watching this.
Yeah, if there's an opportunity in the
enter
future
this.
to come and try out their applications at some point, I'd love to pop by and see what they're doing.
Cool, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so we have this this
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure what from our ICT cluster
Okay.
just as a token of appreciation.
Thank you so much.
Yes, this is
Thank you so much. Thank you.
for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.